Welcome to The Explainer. You know, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the dizzying array of terms used to describe one of the world's oldest cultivated crops, well, you're definitely in the right place. Today, we're setting the stage to demystify the complex botanical, historical, and legal landscape of a highly misunderstood plant. We're going to clear the smoke, so to speak, and rely purely on the facts to figure out exactly what we're looking at. Okay, let's dive right into this, because this is the fundamental question that causes so much public confusion. You constantly hear these three words thrown around interchangeably in the news, in historical documentaries, in legal debates: cannabis, marijuana, hemp. Honestly, looking at them on paper, you'd naturally assume they're completely different botanical species, right? Well, prepare for a surprise. Nope, they're literally all the exact same plant, cannabis sativa. Scientifically speaking, there is absolutely zero difference. Whether it's being grown to make heavy-duty rope or being consumed for a psychoactive high, it all comes from the exact same species of flowering plant in the Cannabaceae family. Section 1. One plant, three names. Let's understand the terms.
So if they're the exact same plant, why the different vocabulary? Think of it kind of like a family. Cannabis is the family surname. It's the overarching scientific name for this flowering plant, and it's the precise term used by researchers, botanists, and scientists everywhere. And historically, the scientific use of the word cannabis has been around for centuries, going way back to ancient roots. Whether a specific plant strain is tall and fibrous or short and sticky, it belongs to the cannabis family. It's the true, neutral umbrella term that covers the whole shebang we're discussing today.
Moving to Section 2, the 0.3% rule and the legal distinction. Now, while science doesn't differentiate between hemp and marijuana, the legal system absolutely does, and it uses a very specific dividing line. Legally speaking, hemp is defined as cannabis that contains 0.3% or less THC by dry weight. Marijuana is cannabis that contains more than 0.3% THC. And that's it. That is literally the entire legal distinction. Funny enough, this 0.3% rule was first proposed back in 1979 in a book by a scientist named Ernest Small. He actually acknowledged at the time that this number was completely arbitrary. But still, it became the hard foundation for major legislation, like the 2018 Agricultural Act here in the US, which legally separated non-intoxicating hemp from intoxicating marijuana. And this really illustrates why that legal distinction matters so much. Because hemp, that low THC member of the family, is a highly sustainable industrial powerhouse. It essentially contains no intoxicating cannabinoids. Instead, it grows faster than trees and honestly has been used for millennia to create paper, clothing, and textiles. Today, we're using it to create hempcrete for building materials, biodegradable plastics, and super nutritious foods like hemp seed, which, by the way, is a complete protein, as well as milk and oil. It's just a non-intoxicating crop with massive, massive industrial potential. Section 3. The history of marijuana. The origins of the word and separating myth from reality. So if cannabis is the scientific name and hemp is the industrial classification, where on earth did the word marijuana come from? Let's untangle the myth from reality here and walk through this timeline. Before the 20th century, the word marijuana was barely even used. People just called the plant cannabis or hemp. But in the 1910s, the Mexican Revolution brought a wave of immigrants to the US, and they brought the Spanish-Mexican word marijuana with them. Fast forward to the 1930s, and the director of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, Harry Anslinger, intentionally started popularizing the term marijuana instead of cannabis. According to historical sources, this was a calculated move to tap into anti-immigrant sentiment and associate the plant directly with Mexican laborers. This whole campaign eventually culminated in the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937, which just straight up criminalized the plant across the board. As our source material pretty clearly notes, the U.S. government used the term marijuana in anti-cannabis propaganda to cement the association between cannabis and Mexican immigrants. So the crucial takeaway here is this: that historical baggage and political origin of the word marijuana is exactly why so many folks in the modern scientific, medical, and industrial communities prefer to just use the accurate, neutral umbrella term cannabis. It strips away all that political history and keeps the focus purely on the botany. Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds. THC, CBD, and terpenes, the chemical compounds. Let's zoom in a bit, kind of like a microscope, and look at the internal cast of characters that give this plant its unique properties. First up, we've got THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol. If cannabis were a family, THC is absolutely the loud, attention-grabbing older brother. It's the primary psychoactive compound in the plant. When you consume it, it rushes to the brain and binds specifically to what are called CB1 receptors. By interacting with those receptors, THC alters time perception, cranks up your appetite, and causes that classic psychological high that people associate with recreational cannabis use. Then, on the flip side, we have CBD, or cannabidiol. You can think of CBD as the calm, quiet younger sibling. And what's super fascinating here is that CBD has the exact same molecular formula as THC. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, all in the exact same amounts. But the atoms are arranged in a slightly different structure. Because of that tiny structural difference, CBD does not get you high. Instead, it acts as a quiet mediator, providing potential calming, anti-inflammatory, and anti-anxiety effects, totally without any intoxication. But THC and CBD aren't working alone in there. Enter the terpenes. Terpenes are basically the plant's scent designers or the atmosphere group. They're volatile aromatic molecules that give different cannabis strains their unique smells. For example, marcene gives off a rich, earthy herbal scent. Limonene provides this bright, citrusy lemon aroma. And piney, well, it smells exactly like a pine forest. But they don't just smell good. Scientists actually believe they interact with the cannabinoids to actively shape your physical experience. And that brings us to this really brilliant concept known as the entourage effect. Our source material describes cannabis not as a single drug, but more like a complex chemical symphony. The cannabinoids like THC and CBD, those terpenes we just talked about, plus other compounds like flavonoids, they all act like a band playing together. You don't just hear the lead singer, right? You hear the bass, the drums, the guitar, all combining to create a rich, complex biological effect that a single, isolated molecule just can't replicate on its own. All right, Section 5, the endocannabinoid system, our internal network. Now, prepare yourselves because the most fascinating biological twist in this entire explainer isn't actually about the plant at all. It's about you. The human body naturally produces its own cannabis-like molecules. No way, right? In the 1990s, scientists discovered that human beings actually possess an internal network called the endocannabinoid system, or the ECS. This system is absolutely crucial for regulating our bodies, balancing everything from our immune response right down to our nervous system. What exactly is our body producing? Well, one of the most famous internal molecules is called anandamide. The scientist who discovered it actually named it after Ananda, which is the ancient Sanskrit word for bliss or joy. Anandamide is essentially our body's own gentle internal version of THC. Our bodies are constantly producing it to naturally regulate pain, balance our mood, control our appetite. So really, the cannabis plant is simply mimicking what we are already building inside of ourselves. Let's step through exactly how this works in practice. 1. You consume cannabis. 2. The plant's cannabinoids, like the THC or CBD, enter the body. 3. They bind directly to our pre-existing CB1 receptors in the brain and the CB2 receptors in our immune system. So the absolute crucial takeaway here is that cannabis doesn't create some new biological system or a bizarre reaction in humans. It simply hacks or plugs right into the pre-existing ECS network that we already use to keep our own bodies in perfect balance. Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Knowing everything we've covered today, from the completely arbitrary 0.3% legal rule to the controversial history of the word marijuana, right down to the fact that our own bodies produce anandamide, is cannabis a foreign drug, or is it simply a botanical key to a lock we already possess? It really changes how you look at the science, doesn't it? I hope this explainer has helped sort out this complex topic for you and maybe sparked your curiosity to learn even more. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.